The administration's efforts to establish the energy infrastructure ceasefire thing are going, well, frankly, pretty embarrassingly bad, as they can't even seem to get Russia and Ukraine to agree on what an energy infrastructure is. Is this just Putin negotiating in bad faith? Plus, we're going to look at the more insane leaks from the Signals group chat, where, the debate over whether or not the information was really classified is literally dunzo. It was super, super classified. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. We're going to talk about the fallout to all of it. Let's go. Okay, so this, I think, is actually the most significant story here, which is that the U.S. and Ukraine, nobody can agree on what should be in this energy infrastructure ceasefire. Now, I want to point out that those of you that are paying attention may recall that in the official release from the Russian government about the energy infrastructure ceasefire during their phone call with President Trump, it said that Vladimir Putin gave the order immediately to end attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure, right? And again, this was probably it could have been some kind of play by President Trump to force Putin to either publicly abandon or admit that he isn't really that interested in a ceasefire, or to get him to agree to it. Because again, the U.S. was going to release a transcript of the phone call. Putin knew this. Putin knew that he would release his own version. And when Putin's own version dropped, it turned out that, in fact, that Putin immediately gave the order to stop engaging Ukrainian infrastructure. But in reality, on the battlefield, none of those things happened. The Ukrainians continue to report extensive strikes by Russian drones on their infrastructure, literally ranging from apartment buildings to power plants to port facilities. So Putin, those of us that have been following this war for any length of time, know that he is a just absolutely chronic liar. He just literally can't stop himself. And so nobody here is shocked that actually knows what's going on. But as we have discussed and has been proven repeatedly in the last couple days, the administration is staffed by incompetent buffoons. And so that doesn't mean, though, God bless them, they're trying their little hearts out. And now they think that they can actually hammer out this energy truce with just a clarification. Again, they continue to deal with Russia as though Putin is just a friend we haven't made yet. But you might recall that literally George W. Bush spent 2 weeks with Putin at his ranch where he said, guys, Putin's just a misunderstood nice guy. Then, of course, Obama came in and said, we're just going to reset Russian relations. And in exchange for that, of course, Putin invaded the state of Georgia. And then, of course, in Obama's second term, he said, listen, we just got to give Putin a little space to think things through. Then he annexed Crimea and Obama did nothing. Seeing another administration just treat Putin like the friend we haven't made yet would be funny if it wasn't costing lives and damaging the fabric of the Western way of life. But in another fit of naivete, the U.S. is conducting some shuttle diplomacy, going from Ukraine to Russia, trying to agree on a list of energy facilities that should not be targeted as part of this energy infrastructure ceasefire. The problem is, of course, that Ukraine says, listen, we want all energy infrastructure means all energy infrastructure. They say facilities that include the electricity sector. So literally from generation to distribution, civilian electricity not seen as a target. Of course, oil and gas complexes, which obviously Russia should be on board with because it's Russian gas that flows through those. Nuclear facilities and the coal industry. These are coal particularly is a key industry in the eastern part of the country, and of course, power production equipment. Russia has said, well, we have a different set of sites. They basically have said, Ukraine's oil and gas facilities, we want to be able to hit them, but Ukraine can't hit ours, of course. And this is one of the most obvious sort of double standards, right, that we've seen coming out of Russia. And that's a country that does a lot of double standards. The reason is, of course, that for Putin, his energy infrastructure, his oil production and distribution is the engine that allows the entire Russian state to fuel its war machine. It is the reason that the Russian state has had to take on minimal sovereign debt in the face of this crisis. If they did have to turn to debt markets to fund their war machine, they would find that there might not be any other sovereign nations willing to purchase that debt. And if they did, it would be at tremendous cost. And so Putin has simply worked around this problem the way he always has, the way these countries always do, which is to basically just be a gas station with an army. And so selling gas is the thing that powers the entire Russian economy, that stabilizes the ruble, that does everything for Russia. And so for Russia, preserving their oil and gas facilities represents the patching up the only strategic vulnerability to the Russian war economy, right? That's the only underbelly that the Ukrainians can target. And even their ability to target those facilities is not terribly effective. However, the other side of the Ukrainians, remember, Ukraine is more of an agrarian country. Their exports are more agriculture focused. And so for them, they want to preserve their electricity distribution. They also want to, of course, protect their mining operations, which is a little bit more in line with what their economy is, a larger sector of their economy. They don't really do the oil and gas extraction the way Russia does. And so, of course, the Russian list is going to say, well, we want to prevent Ukraine from hitting all of our targets, and we want to hit all of Ukraine's. So they say, well, let's just have both sides agree to not touch each other's massive oil production facilities. And Ukraine's like, well, you idiot. We don't have any massive oil production facilities, so all we're agreeing to do is not harm you. And of course, the Ukrainians are, well, likely trying to do something similar, but again, it passes a little bit more of the smell test, right? In fact, the Ukrainians seem to be pretty, I'm going to say the Ukrainians seem pretty honest with their proposal. They say, listen, electricity, oil and gas complexes, nuclear and coal industries. That would actually protect Russian oil and gas, but protect Ukrainian facilities as well. So the Ukrainians offered an actual fair deal, and the Russians are just offering some BS. And this is, again, part of what we've talked about on this channel ad nauseum, which is that the Russians don't really appear to have any meaningful interest in establishing a real peace agreement of any flavor. And look no further, for example, than the Black Sea Agreement, right? You might remember earlier in the war, there was an agreement that the Black Sea would remain kind of a neutral space. That would allow Ukraine to export its goods and allow Russia to, of course, allow commercial traffic to pass through. And this maritime agreement actually held for a while, but unfortunately, right, the White House is trying to bring it back. But man, it's missing a lot of key parts that even the Ukrainians say, listen, there's nothing in here about protecting our ports from Russian attacks, right? So you can't have a Black Sea security agreement, but then say as soon as the ships arrive in port, they're vulnerable to attack. That's sort of pointless. It'd be like designating just a specific 50-mile stretch in the middle of the sea and saying, well, Russia promises not to attack you here. And you go, yeah, but the ships have to sail into it and out of it. You're just going to attack them there. So this kind of sort of disingenuous negotiation is just par for the course, right? And the fact that Washington and these negotiators are running back and forth, trying to operate under make-believe that Russia's like operating in good faith and just wants to hammer out the details is insane, right? It is preposterous, and it is a reflection, again, of just the delusion that comes from every single administration that is simply unwilling to actually understand Putin's fundamental worldview, which is that Putin is like, I hate the West. And meanwhile, the West is like, well, I don't think he really hates the West. I think he was confused. Maybe he got scared, right? It's like having a neighbor's dog that's an asshole. You know, a neighbor's dog that bites people, that barks, that's overly aggressive. And there's always one person in your neighborhood who goes, Fluffy, Guys, Fluffy's just misunderstood. You scared him because you were walking different. You scared him because you were wearing a watch. And at some point you go, listen, 100,000 dogs in the world don't engage in these behaviors. This dog is just bad, right? And Putin, again, look at how many other countries in the world don't invade their neighbors, actually take peace negotiations seriously when they're in a conflict, actually respect the negotiators, actually put forth real credible efforts to establish meaningful peace in the event of conflict, right? And it's, again, the U.S. is just operating in absolute naivete. People come in there, they say, oh, this is the America First administration. Okay, well, you can't be America First and also raise up your enemies. I don't know what else to tell you. But don't worry, guys. You can be confident that thanks to the high level of competence in this administration, that they are just completely wasting their time and getting played by Putin for fools. Now, before we talk about, more information about this, the administration's just truly outstanding competence, I wanted to point out that if you are like me, right, I thought staying in shape was tough when I was a professional soldier in my active duty days. But man, being a dad has really taken it to a new level. But I have a secret weapon that lets me continue to train and, of course, still be, I think, a pretty good dad anyway. My daughter says I'm the best dad. I even got a mug. But that secret weapon is Strike Gum. Strike Gum has 90 milligrams of caffeine in every piece. This one piece contains as much caffeine as a Red Bull or an Amp Energy, okay? Right? And the reason I got it into this little pack is so that you could throw it in your gym bag, right? Throw it in your glove box. I actually put it in the pocket of my bike shorts so that when I'm on a long ride, right, I had to wake up at like 5:30 this morning to do my ride. And you can bet your butt I needed caffeine to get through that. So if you're interested in joining the army of people who do not let being busy stop them, you want to go to strikegum.com, pick up your Strike Gum. And I see the data, guys. I know that 50% of you, 1 in every 2 people that choose one piece of Strike Gum reorders. And if you're going to reorder, guys, get the subscribe and save. We offer you a discount. Just do it. Just take it. Get your second pack for cheaper. You can cancel whenever you want, right? But again, I see you guys. The link is in the description. Check it out. Okay. So, The Atlantic, all right, classic. So The Atlantic, right, got unauthorized access to this group chat. And then the administration said, guys, The Atlantic, they're just being big whiny babies, right? There was no classified information shared in this group chat, and they're lying when they say that there is classified information. Well, The Atlantic said, oh man, we really didn't want to do this. We wanted the administration to just say, sorry, we screwed up. We'll do better next time. But instead, the Atlantic actually went and dropped the remaining texts that they had kept anonymous. And this basically puts a nail in the coffin of the people who said that there were no classified information shared. Because it is literally, I can't even share it. I don't even want to share it because the only people who can declassify something is actually the president. The president's the original classification authority. And while the Secretary of Defense released these, again, to a journalist that was added to the group chat, I'm not sure I want to put it online. But here's what I will say. The texts, which now the administration basically has confirmed are completely true, include a exact to-the-minute timetable of who, what, and where the strikes are going to hit. They say this is exactly who is going to strike who when, down to the minute. And this is insane because, again, if you're America's enemies, this information would have allowed the targets to completely evade capture or killing. And if that's not classified, guys, if the down-to-the-minute details of U.S. military strike operations aren't classified, guys, nothing's classified. If they say this is unclassified, guys, then you might as well get out your phone, pull up Snapchat, and just run into Area 51 because no classification no longer exists. And you guys know, if there's one rant, one of my many rants on this channel has been that the U.S. overclassifies things, and that in a democracy, you cannot simply hide your entire universe by national security secrets, right? Voters need to be able to accurately apprise their world and their governance. And that means that democracies have to be a bit more judicial with their choice to use classification, right? We've seen in Australia, for example, the Australian Defense Forces, right? Credible evidence existed that their special forces committed war crimes in Afghanistan. One of their lawyers actually leaked that information. They said, this is important for the public to see. I have a duty to report this to public officials. And in exchange for that, he was charged with leaking national security secrets. And so this is a common tactic for the government to sit there and hide behind national security and classification to hide the nature of their operations. But this is a classic example, a really just a textbook example of information that is classified but does not really meaningfully contribute to the public discussion, right? It doesn't, the only people that really need to know what the exact aircraft were, what the exact timing of the strikes was, what the strike package looked like. It's not relevant for the public discussion, right? The decision to attack the Houthis, the decision to literally send a bill to the Europeans for a service they didn't really ask for, all of those things warrant public debate. But the fact that you dropped this clearly classified information into this is a frightening display of true incompetence. Again, there's like some disputable cases. Truly, under the current system, almost all internal debates between national NSC, CIA, the Pentagon about actions, all of them are considered like pretty classified. But the actual texts themselves were the first trove that was released was not immediately obvious that it compromised national security, at least being released after the fact, because again, the strikes had happened. But man, this subsequent stuff makes it so clear that the Secretary of Defense has no conception of what is and isn't appropriate to share in an unclass system. There was also, for the record, zero reason. Do you think the Director of National Intelligence cares which aircraft had which kind of weapon? That's not a decision for the SecDef, the Secretary or Cabinet level. That's not a decision for the CENTCOM commander level. Like, those are the kind of things that happen like below the CENTCOM level. They're decisions that are made by the actual people planning these specific strikes. All they care about is the effects. What did we achieve by doing this? And were there any unintended consequences, like a downed aircraft? And so, but the fact that this was even seen as being like relevant is sort of weird. And the fact that the Secretary of Defense felt that the group chat they needed to drop this fire in the group chat is just absolutely insane. Anyway, guys, that is all I had for today. Thank you guys, as always, for looking out. Hope you guys enjoyed the latest video drop on Combat Vet News. Thanks to James J. Rowling, Steve Moran, Doug Beck, Alan Knutson, Bastian Himling, Brian Kelly, Dale McCombs, Jay Zola, Henry Roussier. All of our Lieutenant tier members. Could not do it without you guys. And I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.